Most English learners go quiet in meetings, not because they have nothing to say, because they don't know how to get in. Today I'm giving you 10 phrases for every part of a meeting. Getting in, holding the floor, closing strong. These work in team meetings, client calls, brainstorms, any group setting where you need to be heard. Meetings are where careers are made. After today, you'll know exactly what to say in the room. I'm Mark, and this is English with Mark. New episode, let's get into it.
Meetings are where careers are made or lost, not because of what you know, because of what you say and how you say it. Most English learners go quiet in meetings, not because they have nothing to contribute, because they don't know how to get in, how to hold the floor, how to wrap things up without sounding abrupt. Today, I'm fixing that. 10 expressions for meetings and group discussions in professional English. These work in team meetings, client calls, presentations, brainstorms, any group setting where you need to be heard. Let's start with the hardest part for most people, getting into the conversation in the first place. The phrase is, if I could just jump in here. Jump in means enter the conversation quickly. If I could just is very polite. It asks permission before taking the floor. You might say, if I could just jump in here, I think there's another angle. Or simply, can I jump in for a second? That second one is faster, more casual, works well in team meetings. A similar expression, sorry to interrupt, but sorry to interrupt acknowledges you're cutting in and softens it. Sorry to interrupt, but I think this is relevant to what we're discussing. Very natural, very common, and people don't mind being interrupted this way. And one more. Before we move on, I'd like to add something. Before we move on is slightly more formal. Good when the conversation is about to shift. It says, wait, I have something to contribute before we leave this topic. Timing matters in meetings, and this phrase gives you control of it. One more. Could I come in here? Could I come in means, may I speak? May I contribute right now? Very soft, very polite, but very clear about your intent. Perfect for more formal settings or when you're speaking to senior people. Next, how to hold the floor once you have it. The phrase is, bear with me for a second. Bear with me means, stay with me. Don't move on yet. I'm getting somewhere. It's useful when you need a moment to gather your thoughts midpoint. You might say, bear with me for a second. I want to explain this properly. Or, just bear with me while I pull up the numbers. Bear with me is very reassuring. It says, I haven't lost the thread. I'm in control. A related expression, let me finish this thought. Very direct, very clear. Good when someone tries to interrupt before you're done. Let me just finish this thought and then I'd love to hear your view. That sentence holds the floor and still invites the other person in. Very elegant. And one more. To put it another way. To put it another way means, let me rephrase this. Let me try a different route. Very useful when you can see someone isn't following you. It says, I'm not done. I'm just trying to explain it differently. And one more. What I'm trying to say is, very honest, very human. It says, I know this isn't coming out perfectly, but here it is. What I'm trying to say is that the risk isn't the cost, it's the timing. That sentence refocuses everything, and it does it clearly. I used to lose the floor constantly in meetings. I'd start making a point and someone would interrupt, and I'd just let them. I thought being polite meant stepping back, but actually, you can be polite and hold your ground at the same time. Let me finish this thought taught me that. Next, how to ask for clarification professionally. The phrase is, just to make sure I'm following. Just to make sure I'm following says, I might have missed something. Help me out. It's humble without being weak. It asks for help without admitting confusion. You might say, just to make sure I'm following, are we saying the deadline moves? Or, just to clarify, is this decision final or are we still exploring options? just to clarify, is another very clean phrase, very common in meetings. A related expression, could you walk us through that again? Walk us through means explain it step by step. Take us through it carefully. Could you walk us through the numbers one more time? Very respectful. It says, I want to understand, not, you explained it badly. And one more, when you say X, do you mean Y? This is a very specific clarification technique. You repeat what you heard and check. When you say the project is on track, do you mean within the original scope? That sentence shows you were listening carefully and thinking critically. Both of those things impress people in meetings. And one more. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. On the same page means everyone understands the same thing. Everyone is aligned. Before we move forward, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Very collaborative, very responsible. Nobody can object to that sentence. Next, how to redirect the conversation when it goes off track. The phrase is, let's bring this back to. Bring this back to means, let's refocus, we've drifted, back to the main point. Very useful when meetings get sidetracked, which they always do. You might say, let's bring this back to the original question, or, I want to make sure we bring this back to the budget before we close. This phrase is a leadership move. It shows you're tracking the agenda and that you care about using the time well. A similar expression, I think we might be getting off track slightly. Slightly softens it. It doesn't say, you're all wasting time. It says, we've drifted a little. Let's come back. And one more. Can we park that for now and come back to it? Park means set aside temporarily, not dismiss, just save for later. That's a good point. Can we park that and come back to it at the end? Very professional, very efficient. It says, I heard you, and we'll get to it. People feel respected when you park something rather than ignore it. Next, how to support someone else's point. The phrase is, I think that's exactly right. Exactly right is stronger than just right. It says, completely, fully, no doubt. You might say, I think that's exactly right, and I'd add one more thing. That sentence agrees and then extends, without taking over. Very collaborative, very smooth. A related expression, that's consistent with what I've been seeing too. Consistent with means it matches, it lines up with my own experience or data. That's consistent with what I've been seeing from the client side. This phrase is very credible. It's corroboration, not just your opinion. And one more, I'd echo that. Echo means repeat or reinforce. I'd echo that means, I agree and I'm adding my voice. I'd echo what Sarah said, the timeline is the main concern. Very clean, very professional, and it credits the person whose point you're echoing. One more, I'm glad someone raised that. I'm glad someone raised that means, this needed to be said. I'm relieved it's on the table. I'm glad someone raised that. I've been thinking the same thing. That sentence creates solidarity. You and the speaker are aligned, and now everyone knows it. Next, how to challenge an idea constructively. The phrase is, I want to stress test this a bit. Stress test means, push on it, see if it holds up under pressure. It says, I'm not dismissing this, I'm testing it, like engineers test a structure. You might say, before we commit, I want to stress test this a bit. Or, I want to stress test the assumptions here. What if the market shifts? Stress test is a very credible professional word. It sounds analytical. It says, I'm rigorous. I want us to be sure before we move. A related phrase, have we considered the downside here? Downside means, what's the worst case? What could go wrong? Have we considered the downside if this doesn't land with customers? Very important question, and asked this way, it sounds thorough, not negative. And one more, what are the assumptions behind this? Assumptions are things taken to be true without proof. What are the assumptions behind this projection? That question makes people think, and often reveals something important was being taken for granted. Very powerful question, very short, very underused. Next, how to summarize and synthesize in a meeting. The phrase is, "So if I'm hearing this correctly." So if I'm hearing this correctly means, let me check my understanding. Let me make sure I've captured what's being said before we move. You might say, so if I'm hearing this correctly, the decision is still open? Or, just to summarize what I'm hearing, we have two options on the table. Summarizing in meetings is a superpower. Not everyone does it, but everyone benefits. A related expression, what I'm taking away from this is, taking away means what I'm leaving with, what I'll carry out of this room. What I'm taking away from this is that we need more data before deciding. Very clear, very decisive, and it helps close a discussion. And one more. It sounds like we're landing on. Landing on means arriving at, coming to a conclusion or decision. It sounds like we're landing on option B. Is everyone comfortable with that? That sentence moves things forward and checks for consensus at the same time. Consensus means general agreement, not unanimous, just mostly aligned. Knowing that word is useful. Meetings often aim for consensus, not perfection. Next, how to close a meeting professionally. The phrase is, let's make sure we're clear on next steps. Next steps means what happens after this meeting, who does what, by when. You might say, before we close, let's make sure we're clear on next steps. Or, can someone recap the actions before we wrap up? Wrap up means finish, end the meeting. Very common, very natural. A related expression, who's owning this? Owning means being responsible for, taking accountability for. Who's owning the client follow-up? Very direct, very efficient. It says, I want a name. Someone has to be responsible. Let's not leave this vague. And one more. Let's schedule a follow-up to check progress. Follow-up means a subsequent meeting or conversation to review what happened. Let's schedule a follow-up for next Thursday to check progress on this. Very action-oriented, very professional. Meetings that end without next steps waste everyone's time. This phrase makes sure that doesn't happen. The best meeting I ever attended ended in 10 minutes. Clear agenda. Everyone knew what they were there to decide. Decision made. Next steps assigned. Done. That's the goal, not long meetings, effective ones. And these phrases help you make that happen, whatever your role in the room. Okay, full recap. 10 expressions for meetings and group discussions. Jump in. Bear with me, just to make sure I'm following. Let's bring this back to, I think that's exactly right. I want to stress test this, so if I'm hearing this correctly, it sounds like we're landing on. Let's make sure we're clear on next steps. These phrases cover every part of a meeting: getting in, staying in, redirecting, supporting, challenging, closing. Your challenge: pick one phrase and use it in your next meeting. Just one. See how it feels. Then come back and tell me in the comments. I read every comment. I genuinely love to know which one you tried. I'm Mark, and this is English with Mark. New episode, let's get into it.